Good morning. It's Monday, August 31st. In IndigPatriot News, I'm going to cover a few articles. I'm not going to go into all these articles because there's just too much to cover. Okay. So the first one I'm going to go into is from Reuters. I don't know how to say the Reuters. I suppose I should look that up, right? This is going to be a 40% left, center 40%, and right 20%. So we can see the bias chart down here. Trump intel chief defends briefings ban. Democrats raise subpoena threat. So U.S. President Donald Trump's intelligence chief on Sunday defended his decision to cease in-person congressional briefings on election security, while Democrats said the move would suppress critical information about foreign election meddling and warned they may subpoena testimony. John Ratcliff, let me pause here for a second. How much of the support that he gives Trump do you think is based off the fact that Trump likes to make up nicknames and his is like, I'm above that. John Ratcliffe, the president's new director of national intelligence and a close Trump ally, accused U.S. lawmakers of leaking classified information from a July 31st briefing to promote what he called false narratives for political purposes. A number of members of Congress went to a number of different publications and leaked classified information, again for political purposes, to create a narrative that simply isn't true, that somehow Russia is a greater national security threat than China, Ratcliffe told Fox News' Sunday Morning Futures. So I read in a different article that he clarifies that, I don't want to say clarifies, but he states, Russia is a threat, but it's not a bigger threat than China. Who cares? Okay? These are our representatives. These are the people that are there to be our direct influence on politics. That's why we elect them on a state-by-state basis instead of, on a national basis. Okay? Because they represent, they are we the people. When we aren't protesting, which is still a legal method of, and a First Amendment right of addressing grievances. Okay? Ratcliffe is a former lawmaker who defended Trump during congressional probes into Russian efforts to influence the 2016 election. That statement there is a very important piece of it. And you know what? I'm currently going through the 900 plus pages of the bipartisan Senate report on Russia, Volume 5, that was released quietly, a week or two back. And I don't agree with their defense of Donald Trump. Let's just state that right now. Democratic lawmakers accused Ratcliffe of trying to block them from questioning intelligence officials in a bid to conceal information on how Russia has been interfering in the 2020 presidential election to help Trump as it did in 2016. Schiff says, you can say things in a written report that are not correct and you can't be subject to questioning about it. When you can hide behind documents or withhold documents and not have to answer questions about it, it lets you conceal the truth. And in this case, concealing the truth is concealing Russians are again intervening to help the president in his reelection. Okay, so I get on a basis where we are identifying individuals that could possibly put them into danger. We need to keep things classified. But in regards to our democratic national process that elects our leaders, we should just be allowed to know who's messing with it. Okay, we should be allowed to know what methods that they are using in order to influence us, so that we can have a direct tie to all the nonsense that's going on, and we can defend against that as a people instead of relying on these institutions that we currently don't trust. Okay? And that's bipartisan. Bipartisan, we do not trust our institutions. That is exactly what an autocrat does as they're gaining power. Look it up. Don't just believe me. Maybe we can research once in a while. So a member of Patriot Prayer was killed during a protest in Portland. We don't know who shot the person. We don't know if it was a protester slash rioter, whatever you want to call them. If you were peacefully protesting and you were a protester, if you were rioting, you were a rioter. I draw the line on that. I do not condone violence. I do not condone destruction. But I do condone getting out there on the streets, and sometimes that is what causes the attention. Because people weren't listening when Kaepernick and them were taking a knee. That's just how simple it is. I'm going to go into this one now. This is a very incendiary case. This is basically 2020 in a nutshell. This is 20% left, 10% center, and wow, look at it. Look at the right covering this. Okay, they are like wolves trying to defend their pack there. I'm going with Forbes. It's as center as I can get. The attorney representing Illinois teen Kyle Rittenhouse, who was charged with homicide for shooting Kenosha protesters, told Forbes Saturday that his current intent is not to waive extradition back to Wisconsin, where the teen could face a life sentence if convicted, and where the attorney said he could face threats of bodily harm while in custody. I think that is a viable. I think that it makes sense to be fearful for this kid's safety, because what happened is an incendiary action, no matter how you look at it. And I do believe that, for his safety, he should probably be isolated from the community that the actions happened in. Rittenhouse's lawyer, John Pierce, had issued a 3-page statement Friday arguing for the innocence of his client, who faces 6 criminal charges on self-defense grounds, and vilifying the protesters as being determined to hurt Kyle and a mob, echoing a phrase used by President Trump to describe protesters. I'd like to point something out. Would Kyle Rittenhouse have had to have defended himself if he was following the law? No. The answer, unequivocally, is no. Because if he was following the law, he wouldn't have been there with a gun in the first place. He wouldn't have been part of an unsanctioned militia. Whatever part of your intellectual prowess comes from bipartisan statements, it's hard to argue that if he was following the law, he would have not been there to shoot these people. He wouldn't have been there to get attacked. He wouldn't have been there to shoot these people. That's the fact of it. There's nothing more that we really need to look into as far as who's ultimately at fault. The decision lies in him being there. You could argue that the protesters put themselves in that place too, but I'd like to argue that the protesters weren't carrying AR-15s. And when you step into an incendiary situation with an AR-15, why would you expect that somebody is not going to pop off? It's logic. So Pierce, who has also represented Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, so we know what kind of trash we're dealing with, and former advisor Carter Page, followed that up Saturday in an interview with Forbes, saying he feels Rittenhouse would be in danger if sent to Wisconsin, where he's been charged as an adult, and I agree. I agree with that part. I don't agree with this part, though. He shouldn't be detained anywhere, said Pierce, adding that in Wisconsin, he's considered an adult and he's going to be placed potentially in a very, very dangerous adult population, general population, in a situation in which there are forces within the country right now that are trying to figure out a way for people to cause him harm. He did not specify any specific threats, but said, take a look online. Again, this is logic, okay? we've become so partisan in 2020 that any action, it becomes a okay, well, you got one of us, so we're gonna get one of you kind of situations. That you can argue that all you want, but look into it. Okay. Pierce also accused the government of Wisconsin, the mayor, and the governor of trying to use Rittenhouse as a scapegoat to cover up the situation with the Jacob Blake case. Okay, so Jacob Blake, I wanted to talk about that real quick too. A lot of the people on the right are claiming that he was arrested, that he had a warrant out for rape. So, what I'm going to say here, the whole statement. Rape in its traditional sense is forcing sexual intercourse on another person. If you look up the definition of rape, the actual dictionary definition, that's what you're going to find. Now, jurisdictions may consider that differently, okay? But that's false. He, according to the statement taken by his ex-girlfriend, who's the person that made the police report, what I'm going to say is a little bit graphic, so you might want to skip this part if you're offended by that. But he stated that he penetrated her digitally with his fingers, sniffed it, and said it smells like you've been with other men. Okay, that is in no way appropriate in any stretch of the matter. Okay, you should not force any kind of contact, not just sexual contact, but any kind of contact on somebody that is not uh, reciprocating those feelings. Okay, so you shouldn't be touching people that don't want to be touched, but it is not the actual dictionary definition of rape. What the confusion comes in is where somebody's reading the wrong statutes. You need to go to the Wisconsin statutes and read what third degree, um, what is it, third degree sexual assault, statute is. Sorry, that's where some of the confusion comes in, because I've had people share with me the statute from Rhode Island, which is not the same thing. Okay, there's not a general federal statute list that every department goes after. Okay, so that's part of that disconnect. I could talk about that part all day. I'm sorry. I need to move on. Teen and children hospitalizations, deaths from coronavirus increasing. Report. This is left 50, center 50, and the right just doesn't give a shit about it. I mean, at least as ground news is showing. Prove me wrong. Coronavirus related hospitalizations and deaths of children and teens are on the rise. I'm reading from The Hill, by the way. According to data compiled by the American Academy of Pediatrics. Although data indicate younger children are less likely to catch or transmit the virus, the May 21st to August 20th dataset shows a similar rise across states. Complicating matters is the fact that states use different grouping strategies, with many putting infants and teens in the same category. That's not really appropriate as far as determining health responses. Sean O'Leary, vice chairman of the American Academy of Pediatrics Committee on Infectious Diseases, said that infections among children appear to increase with general community spread. He added that, as with adults, Black and Latino children appear to be at disproportionate risk of hospitalization. Anyone who's been on the front lines of this pandemic in a children's hospital can tell you we've taken care of lots of kids that are very sick, O'Leary told the Times. Yes, it's less severe in children than adults, but it's not completely benign. I don't care what it is, okay? The love for your children should make sure that you don't put them into that kind of danger to begin with. Why are we gambling with our children? It's stupid. We're in 2020 right now, okay? We have methods of communication that could be reciprocal, cameras to watch people. In fact, at my child's school, they gave them iPads and a stylus in order to help with their school learning, okay? It's not, maybe it's not the same as in-person learning, but we make do with what we have in order to protect our future. And protecting our future includes actual health. All right, so this one is Scalise on doctored Biden video. It shouldn't have been edited. The only people that are covering this is Politico, which is a center bias. House Minority Whip Steve Scalise on Monday defended his decision to tweet a video of a doctored exchange between Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden and progressive healthcare activist Adi Barkan, insisting that the altered clip correctly conveyed Biden's stance on police funding. Look, it shouldn't have been edited, Scalise told Fox News, but at the same time, the comments were always about. In fact, twice in that interview, he asked Joe Biden if he was for redirecting money away from police, and in both times, Joe Biden said yes. The remarks Monday morning from the second-ranking House Republican represented his first comments on the controversy that erupted over the weekend on social media. Scalise on Saturday shared a video that spliced Barkan's quotes in his conversation with Biden to make it sound as though Biden explicitly expressed support for redirecting funding away from police departments. You're going to see that that's false. Twitter flagged the video as manipulated, and the Medicare for All advocate has amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, the incurable disease known as ALS, and he uses eye tracking technology combined with speech generating devices to help him communicate. At Steve Scalise, those are not my words. I've lost my ability to speak, but not my agency or my thoughts, Barkan tweeted Sunday. You and your team have doctored my words for your own political gain. Please remove this video immediately. You owe the entire disability community an apology. I agree. So basically, Steve Scalise's spokeswoman, Lauren Fine, stated the same thing. It's condensed just like other videos to show what he was actually saying, the essence of what he was actually saying. That's called manipulation, and it's called fake news. Okay? Here's the part that's pretty interesting to me in this whole thing. President Donald Trump and his allies have repeatedly and falsely claimed that Biden supports defunding police, a proposal that gained greater prominence this summer amid nationwide protests against police brutality and racial injustice. But Biden supports no such policy. These are facts, man. And while he favors more police reforms and oversight, which we should have, okay, so let me ask you this. When we are making sure that we are crossing our T's and dotting our I's as it pertains to police, we aren't just protecting the public, we are also protecting police, okay? When police are wearing body cams, as they weren't doing in Kenosha, it not just makes it so that the public can see, if a bad apple did something wrong, but it also stops police from getting inaccurate reports on their actions too, okay? So this is a double-sided thing. The oversight isn't always something that is wrong. People look at it like it's Big Brother keeping an eye on you. But when you are somebody that has been, has taken an oath to protect and serve, and when you have the authority that a police officer has in our communities, oversight is not a bad thing, okay? We just have to make sure that we are being fair in our discussions in regards to these people. They are humans. There are people. There are things that happen from quote unquote bad apples, and we need to pull those bad apples from the tree as they're rotting instead of waiting until they spoil the whole barrel. Okay. Chris Rock, to sum it up, said something along the lines of, some jobs you can't have a bad apple. Imagine finding out that your pilot, your pilot's just a bad apple. Are you going to get on that airplane? He says it better than me because he's a professional, man. The guy's much better at this than I am. He's much more practiced though, so. But anyway, I agree with him. There are some jobs where you can't have the bad apples. That's just a fact. In any case, he's called for an additional 300 million in funding to police departments, and they're claiming that he wants to defund them. He's come out multiple times stating that he does not want to defund the police. Let me see what this other article over here is. This is a vanity piece. Okay, this isn't me. I didn't write this. I don't mean it as a vanity piece. There, it's just something that I happen to have read that. So look at this picture. Oh, so when you idolize an individual this far, when you've turned them into a superhero in your eyes, it's really hard to argue detrimental things that individual is doing because they have placed them on a pedestal that is above reach. Okay? And that's where we are. That's why we call it a cult. We call it a cult because they have placed in importance in their souls this individual because somehow he speaks to them. So this really rich guy who's driven around in limos everywhere, who associates with celebrities, and has built his brand throughout the entirety of a lot of our lives. I bet throughout the entirety of the two people that are in this picture, maybe the one in the background too. I don't know. But all he's done is build his brand. How can we say that he's one of you? In any case, President Trump was having a normal one on Sunday morning, tweeting and retweeting 89 times over the course of 3.5 hours. Many of the tweets were polling numbers from obscure firms showing him in the lead after the Republican convention. Ignore the polls, okay? It doesn't matter if he's leading. It doesn't matter if we're leading. It doesn't matter, okay? Get out there and vote. The polls mean nothing. We saw that in 2016 where they said that Hillary had like a 20-something% chance of losing. Well, guess what? But most of the tweets and retweets were incitement to violence among his true believers and complaints about Democrat cities, an ongoing mantra which he seems to think is a slam dunk to get him reelected. He repeatedly insulted and mocked Joe Biden, of course, and Portland, Oregon Mayor Ted Wheeler will undoubtedly have to change his phone number after the President of the United States doxed him by posting his phone number on Twitter so followers could call and demand his resignation. The President of the United States acts like an incel in the basement, typing away on his little phone, raging at people. That's exactly who we've elected. Whether or not I agreed with the Republican Party, I never will agree with putting all of my support behind one individual. I never will agree to that because that's how you end up with a dictator. Okay, when you give too much power to one individual, that's how you end up with a dictator. That's why we share power. That's why we have co-equal branches, usually. Okay? In any case, he should not be, he should be uniting people. He should not be divisive as he's been. Okay? It was a manic tweet spree and one that couldn't have shown the president's state of mind any more clearly. Raw story. I will edit your stuff for you if you want to give me a couple dollars here and there. I'm just kidding. You guys, you have all the power in that relationship. Biden has said Trump is rooting for violence, and I don't think anyone can reasonably argue with that. In fact, Trump's surrogates are saying it right out loud. Fox News' Chris Wallace asked Trump campaign advisor Laura Trump whether she agreed with White House counselor Kellyanne Conway's assertion that the more chaos and anarchy and vandalism and violence reigns, the better it is for the very clear choice on who's best on public safety and law and order. Laura answered, "Well, I think it paints a very clear picture." She might as well have said, "You go, boys." Okay, on Sunday, on CNN on Sunday, Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin agreed with Trump that the shootings by a 17-year-old Trump fan last Tuesday night in Kenosha were understandable. They wouldn't have been understandable if he wasn't there. I'll repeat that. If he wasn't there, if he was following the laws, he would have never shot anybody. That's just it. Okay. In any case, I'm sure that this is a long one. Let's look at the little Dragon Ball of time. Oh, 26 minutes. Sorry, Cooley, and anybody that doesn't like the longer ones, but there we are. I'm at WIKWEKO. That's at WIKWEKO on Twitter. IndigenousPatriot.com. If you enjoy what I'm doing, please follow, share my videos, and have a good Monday.